on our line of travel at 1,200 meters. Now we can pick up, well, if that's a way, there's a sexier way. And then you turn back 60 degrees. Effectively, you've cut down your movement basically in half. They work great in a classroom environment. Some of the things that we're taught by those who can't do simply don't work. And give you a couple things as you're planning that can actually be useful for you when your boots are on the ground. There is a technique discussed in the classrooms about how to negotiate obstacles when you're out conducting land navigation, patrolling, any kind of dismounted movement. In this video, I want to break that technique down for you, give you a really kind of cool alternative, and then turn around and tell you why both of those techniques perform well in a classroom on a whiteboard or PowerPoint presentation, but they don't do so well out in the field. And then give you a couple things as you're planning that can actually be useful for you when your boots are on the ground. Team, that's what this channel is all about. Fieldcraft and tactical virtue. If that's what you're into, you do you. So out here with the pups, walking through the forest, sticking to some trails and getting off the trails and exploring a little bit. And thinking about, like, what do you do if you are patrolling and you come across an obstacle that is impassable? So what kind of obstacles can we be talking about? We could be talking about things that are man-made, right? They could be some property, right, that you can't cross. It could be an obstacle, maybe it's a minefield, whatever it is, right? Somebody has built and placed an object or objects that you cannot go straight through on your line of travel. Maybe it is more natural, right? Maybe it's a large creek that you need to work your way around. Maybe it's well, linear features actually kind of prove one of my next points. Maybe it's a pond. Maybe it's a big cliff face. Maybe it's a gorge, right? A little canyon, and you can't simply walk straight through. So let's assume here that your line of travel is at 0, which we'll use for all of these examples. Just it's going to help make things easy, right? Assume that your line of travel is 0, and you've been walking for, let's say, 1,000 meters.
Good job.
You come across this obstacle. It's a lake, and you can't get around. You can't walk through it, right? None of us are Jesus. We're not walking on water. So you say, well, I need to get to the other side because I have to go 2,000 meters. So what do? Well, the classroom technique would tell you to stop at where you to pace count at 1,000 meters and execute basically a right or left face. We'll assume that we need to turn to the right. So we're going to face to 90 degrees. We'll preset our compass and we'll move out until we are beyond the obstacle, keeping track of how far we travel away from our line of travel that we've been on, right? We're going from A to B on. Again, off that 0 heading. And then once we get out, say we moved a couple hundred meters off to our right at 90 degrees, we have to execute a left face, turn back on our line of travel at 0 degrees, and walk until we are again beyond the obstacle. We've gotten to the far side of the lake. Once we're there, we note how far it took us. It took us 200 meters. We execute another left face and we come back 200 meters because that's how far we walked away from our original line of travel. So now we're back on our original line, but we're 200 meters forward from where we stopped, right? We walked 1,000, we moved out 200, up 200, back 200. So now we're on our line of travel at 1,200 meters. Now we can pick up our original azimuth and keep plugging away, right? Sounds all well and good. And it works, and you should know this technique. Well, if that's a way, there's a sexier way. Let's say you're traveling at 0 degrees, you've moved 1,000 meters. But you notice when you're looking at this obstacle that you don't necessarily have to work in a hard box to get around this thing, right? Not many obstacles out there are square-ish. They're oblong, they're irregular, especially if they're natural. Maybe it's a big wide open field, open danger area, right? So, alternative technique is as simple as you're on 0. Instead of going to 90, you go to 60. And you move out 200 meters. And then you turn back 60 degrees. And you come back again 200 meters. What you've just done is you've made an equilateral triangle, right? This is all geometry crap, right? At the end of the day, like you thought when you were in 10th grade and sitting in your geometry class and your teacher was like, you're gonna need this someday. You're like, you're full of crap. And here we are doing geometry out in the woods. So imagine, again, turn 60 degrees, cut back 60 degrees. Now we're on our original line of travel, and whatever one of those legs is that we moved, if we move 200 meters, as soon as we get back on our line of travel and get ready to turn back at 0, we've traveled 200 meters on our original line of travel. Effectively, you've cut down your movement basically in half, right? Instead of making a big square, you moved in a triangle, right? I'm not going to insult your intelligence. It's fairly straightforward. The problem with both of these techniques is they work great for overthinkers. They work great in a classroom environment. They work great when I get emails telling me how much I suck at land navigation from military officer, professor Staines. And this is what they do. This is what they teach. This is their advanced stuff, right? Thinking about alternative ways of using math to work out in the field. The problem is things that work out well on 2 dimensions, you need to know them. There are foundational principles to give you more confidence when you're moving out through this brush, right? But how well do they actually work out? Odds are, as you're planning your route, and you start from A and you're looking out towards B, again, we're looking at 2,000 meters, right? That's a long ways. A, that's way too far to try to keep a bearing. But hey, as you're looking, you see this lake, right? You see this lake before you start moving, which means that you could have done a couple things different. You could have offset to one side of the lake or the other right off the bat. Like, what? You don't need to walk in a straight line to something that you know that you can't cross, when you could move at an angle at the oblique to come to the point where you can cross it. You're still at a fixed known point. Would be a way. Alternative way would be, hey, I'm at this lake and I need to know, how far it is to the other side, and I could have boxed around it, right? So I moved 200 meters to the other side. Well, odds are I can measure this lake using my scale that's on the legend of the map. And if I come up to the lake, and maybe I can identify, a point on the other side of the lake that I will be able to identify when I go around, right? It's a steering mark. Or maybe I look behind me and there's a steering mark on my reverse azimuth. Maybe I drop a body here. Maybe I flag a tree. Whatever it is, I know I can get back on this line. So I met my 1,000 meters. I simply walk around. Simply walk around to the other side. Get back on your line of travel. Calculate your distance using your scale on your legend and pop smoke. Could be some other train features that we can use along the way, or could even be, you know, instead of moving down, right? Like, let's say here we are, maybe this was a steeper gorge, right? And it shot way down, and I didn't want to do that. Again, if there's something on the other side, or if I can leave a body here, I can simply, because all these gorges right there, this one starts right up here as water was running off and downhill. I can simply walk on the same elevation. Now I'm not going down a steep grade and back up a steep grade. I'm simply walking in a V until I get to the other side. Made it much safer and much easier to get across that obstacle, right? Either way about it, again, there are as many ways as you can think through a problem to solve it, right? You just have to step back and take a little bit of a more of a bird's eye view. Get that 40,000 foot view of the terrain that you're dealing with. What's your task? What's your purpose? What's your time hacks? What's the overarching situation? All of these things are going to drive our problem solving. They're going to drive our decision making, right? All of these variables that exist. Kind of have some acronyms for them. You know what they are? But in my experience, the straight classroom technique of boxing around an obstacle quite simply doesn't work in reality, right? When boots are actually on the ground, some of the things that we're taught by those who can't do simply don't work. Team, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments down below about bypassing obstacles, about things that work better in theory and in the classroom than they do in actuality. Appreciate you guys. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked. Team, if you want to master your craft, develop your tactical virtue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so that you can stay up to date with future content. Consider becoming a channel member. It's going to give you exclusive access to content not available to anybody else. I appreciate you guys. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.
We know you're out there! Come to my voice!